Hello.
Hey, we've got our first return guest.
Yeah, she's back.
Back at the podcast
Back
today.
and ready.
Back and ready. Ladies and gentlemen, we are excited to have with you our very own, our one and only, Miss Bethany Curtis.
Hello and welcome to the Resilient
I'm not supposed to wait.
Yes.
You're fine. Just keep going.
You have to keep that.
Yeah, we will go. Keep going.
Hello and welcome to the Resilient Lineage podcast, where we reflect on the past, anticipate the future, and discover what God is up to today. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Milo. And
I'm the mom.
Bethany. So Bethany was on our previous podcast.
Yeah.
And we typically don't do a lot of edits on our podcast. And so last year, you were on our Mother's Day episode.
I was so nervous.
And you were so nervous that there was like these long pauses that I would ask you a question and then you would stop and
Ponder.
and think and then you would share.
And you had to shrink my little gaps because I waited so long.
I spent more time editing that podcast than other podcasts. I think it was one of those, I can't remember how long that episode is, but I think I was able to cut out like 7 minutes of silence. It was pretty funny. And so ever since then, the joke is when we begin the podcast, we say, or at the last episode, we said, "Hey, welcome to the podcast." And then you're like really silent and you said,
"Thank you for having me."
So every time people are like, "You should have your mom back on the podcast." Like that's
No.
the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
They
what
cringe about.
That's what we've been talking about. So it's been not quite a year, but almost a year since
Right.
we've had you on the episode. And where we're going today, here's our big idea, kind of the thing that we want to have a family discussion around. And it's this: is that when going through difficulties, you can either let the difficulty or the problem you're facing determine your life choices, or you can let your convictions determine your life choices. And we're going to get into what we mean by all that just real quick. In this as our family, we've kind of shaped our core convictions around connect, equip, worship, serve. We're going to talk about that a little bit and how we shape some life choices around those things when facing a difficulty. But we want to talk about the difficulty, and that's why you're on the podcast today.
Yes, I know.
So we debated whether or not this was something how public we wanted to share this information. And I think in light of how we've kind of, how we're wired as a family, I think this is like a natural kind of response. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
You want to tell us what's going on?
Sure. So in February, I went in for my annual mammogram. I've been having mammograms for 10 years. Most of them I get a call back. So when I got a call back to the second mammogram, I didn't get too concerned either. But at the second mammogram, they said, "Ma'am, there is something there, and you're going to have 2 biopsies done." And I had never had to have a biopsy before. So in March, I went in for 2 biopsies on one of my breasts, and one is a big cyst and the other was cancer. So the radiologist called and said, "You have DCIS, which is a ductal carcinoma in situ, which means I have a cancer inside a milk duct that's contained. And so it's found in the earliest stage it could be found, and they'll hopefully remove it all because it's contained, and then I do not have to have chemotherapy or radiation."
So the good news is that this was found early.
Yes.
And you've been doing this because there's a family history of breast cancer and things. So you've been very diligent to stay on top of that. The care plan moving forward,
If I do not want to have radiation, which I do not, is to have a double mastectomy and have both of my breasts removed and then reconstruct.
yeah. And what's been driving that decision is, I think, as well as I've heard it from you, is by that path kind of removes any
Possibility.
your risks drop, not completely, but they get really low of this becoming a reoccurring problem.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Yes, and I'd say for all this effort and stress to deal with one side, I sure don't want something to come up on the other side next year and we're doing it all again.
Yeah.
Like, just be done.
Yeah.
I won't be having mammograms anymore.
So as you can imagine, this is kind of absorbed a lot of our family conversation and dialogue. And in the last few weeks, there's been a lot of medical appointments and follow-on tests. And this last week, we sat down and identified the care plan and all that's taking place. Again, like the big idea is this is obviously an unexpected difficulty, and it's coming at a time when we're scheduled to move within the next handful of months.
Yeah.
And so I'm coordinating things with the Navy to see what can be done to keep us where we're at. Is there, instead of us moving to another location, that we stay where we're at and find a job in this area, or is there a delay in us moving? Anyway, there's that's hanging over our heads, as well as the surgery, as well as, there's all of these uncertainties. In fact, in my journal, when I have my devotions, I journal, and I think it was after that one appointment we had last week where we kind of hit a wall. And it was just a hard
Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a hard day. And I journaled the next day that this feels like remember when you're like a little kid and you would have a blanket put over you and you'd and the blanket would feel heavy and you'd kind of like move forward, but it's sort of obstructing it's like it's completely surrounding you. And I said, this whole thing feels like a wet canvas that is deeply uncomfortable and is just heavy. And it's unclear how to move forward in light of all of the uncertainties that exist. And that's how I feel as somebody who's just coming alongside you, let alone, I can't, how you're feeling and thinking and doing as the person who's going through it.
And I'd say that's how we mentally feel. We mentally feel exhausted. Physically, I'm fine. If I hadn't have gone to the mammogram, I wouldn't know anything is wrong.
Yeah.
But I feel like a shift is going to happen after that surgery where the pain and the recovery will be what's right in front of me. But right now, it feels like all the mental hoops of how do you think about it? What should be the steps going forward for us?
So coming to these 4 convictions, right? How do we not let this difficulty, in our situation, it's cancer, and the treatment plan that has been chosen to deal with it. How do we not let that determine our life choices? Obviously, it's going to impact our life choices, but how can we kind of dig deeper and get to the place where the convictions we hold to as a family are driving the choices that we're making? And our family, we've lived with these 4 choices since 2004, at least, if not a little bit earlier than that. But we formalized them in 2004, which is to connect, equip, worship, serve. And those come out of Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47. You want to read that for us, kiddos?
Yeah. And it says, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all, as any had a need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved.
So out of that, we've, kind of the end game that we want to see through our lives is that the Lord adds to our number daily those who are being saved. Like, that's the posture of our lives. We want to see our lives be used for God to save as many souls as possible, to enter into the redemption that is His, for them to enter into the meaningful life and purpose that He has for them. And so we've oriented our entire lives towards that objective. How can we help people come to know Jesus? And what we see here with the early church, we've put them into kind of these 4 categories, these 4 convictions. So the first is connect.
Yeah, connect. And what we mean by that is to faithfully and consistently belong to a community of believers.
And so everywhere we've been, we've tried to find a church as fast as we can. The kind of first chunk of, we've been married for 25 years now, right? 26 years now.
Can you believe that?
And the first 16 of those years, I was pastoring a church. And so, connecting with believers was relatively easy. And I remember when I joined the Navy, it was the first time when we moved, it was the first time we really had to look for a church. I guess Grace Chapel was a church we had to look for as well. But that's been less common than we've already kind of been plugged into a church. But we've always prioritized it. And I don't mean like we just found a church to show up on Sundays. We meant, how do we really plug into the community that's here? And so that's our first conviction. Our second is to equip, which is to tenaciously learn and grow in stewarding the resources to pursue God. And so, how do we grow physically? How do we grow mentally, spiritually, relationally? Kind of those areas that, where are the areas that we would feel weak or want to be lazy or not be as diligent, and where are the areas that are easier, right? Because I'm gifted and talented. I kind of want to gravitate towards those areas, which is great. Like, develop that, but sometimes, we can be developed in some areas of our life at the expense of others because the other areas are harder.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy personally for me. It's easy for me to focus on, like developing sermons and studying and, talks and preaching and things. I enjoy that kind of stuff. It's harder for me to go work out physically, but that's part of the equip piece. It's this kind of full body, full dimension aspect of all of this. And then the third is worship. You want to read that for us, babe? What we mean by worship?
How are we going to worship God through this, and what could get in the way of that worship?
Up a bit more. Do you see where we're at?
Oh, worship. Authentic reverence and love for God through all the seasons of life.
Yeah. And so this, we mean more than just where do we show up on Sundays?
Yeah. What song's going to play? Maybe it won't move me this week. I bet they have a better set. You know what I mean? What's going to get me going?
Yeah.
It's more than just that.
It's both public and private. Mm-hmm. And then the serve piece.
The serve, yeah. It's ordering the priorities of life for the benefit of others.
Yeah. So those are our 4. And so what we're going to do is, and our intent with this is, I'm confident that, our listeners are going through their own stuff. Right? So everybody has something they're facing.
Yep.
And it might not be as intense as what we're facing with you.
Or far more intense.
Or it could be more intense, right? The point isn't to ratio our difficulties against one another and go, well, they have it way worse, so I don't have to ask these questions. Or I have it way worse than they do, so I don't have to ask these questions. Like, the objective is to go, this is what we hope to illustrate with this, is that these are questions that we generally ask. Well, we do ask anytime we're typically facing some kind of transition. Sometimes it's when we're moving, or sometimes it's when, we're shifting from one life stage to another. So what we thought we would do is kind of walk you through how we ask questions around these things and what that conversation looks like at our table. So, because we want you, and if you want to use these, obviously, we don't have any, we pulled these out of Scripture, so these aren't new to us. So I would encourage folks to either identify their convictions and then come up with good ways to ask questions around those convictions, or use these. Feel free to use these. And if it's a launch off point to be able to ask this stuff, I encourage you to do so. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through a series of questions around each one of these areas and then just discuss it as a family. The only person who's not here is Andrew.
I know.
Yeah, I wish he was here.
Hey, dude.
He's
I know, he just replied back to you, hey, Mom.
He's in Atlanta, Georgia, where he's going to college at Oglethorpe University, and he's wrapping up his semester down there. So, but this would be typically something we would do as a family. We would sit around the table and talk about these things, and not maybe this formally, but we would talk about these things during dinner, and sometimes our 20-minute dinners turn into.
It turns into Dad rotating his chair, pressing it back, legs crossed, has a beverage in his hand. And that's when you know we're going to be here longer than 20 minutes. It's like this position. It's like this. If he's not doing it already, he has something else on his mind that needs to get done or conquered, or we have other priorities. Or it's like, let me just sit back and we're going to walk through this together. And Andrew and I are like, yeah. And then it ends with, okay, do the dishes. And then he gets up and leaves.
Okay, so the first question around Connect. What are we doing to press into the unity that God has for us? What have you been doing?
Well, I was going to go historical first. Like, I found out at Grace Chapel what it was like to meet with girls every week. And every week somebody was facing something, and another week they were doing really well. And you're with them for 5 years. And we rode our roller coasters together with each other of what was hard. And I can go back and look in those devotional books of what the prayer requests were and see what was hard for one and the other one was celebrating something. And then you move it 3 months and the one who is celebrating has faced something hard, and you're just constantly encouraging, and you're getting to know them. You're getting to serve them micro each week. You're taking a meal to them, or you're picking their kids up, or you're meeting for this, and you get to know people by how vulnerable they'll be with you, how open they'll be with you. So when I got this diagnosis the first night, I was texting people I had been in Bible study with from 20 years ago, 15, 10, 5, last year, last week, because those were the women I felt like who knew me best and who still love me best. And I still had connections with them, still keeping in contact with them outside of this. And that's who my heart wanted to let know.
Yeah. How about you, kiddo?
Good. Chilling. I mean, like, okay, if Mom tears up, I tear up. We're like twins. We have the same umbilical cord. So, like...
Emotional umbilical cord.
Yeah, it's also in the morning. So, like, my emotional bandwidth is, like, not great. But, I don't live at home. So, it's like... I called Mom. I was leaving my nannying job. And I called Mom for something. Like, it wasn't serious. Like, it was like, you'll never believe what this 5-year-old did, And she was like, oh, like, now that you're on the phone, I just got news I have breast cancer. I was like, oh, like, but she was fine. Like, she wasn't teary or she wasn't upset. So I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, if Mom was, I would be a mess.
Yeah.
But, like, from what I can do, it's sharing with my roommates and sharing with kids in my class that I know have a deep belonging and a deep connection with the Lord and a deep connection with our community at Regent. Even my roommate, I told them my mom was going in for a biopsy. She's like, Olivia, you need to take that serious. Like, I don't know what that means. I'm like... There's already a lot going on, so, like, what more could be, you know what I mean? Like, the Lord wouldn't do that.
Or allow it.
Because they're already going through difficult choices and decisions, and first, like, how their marriage is, and moving to possibly a different state, and then what to do with our house, and all these different things that are at hand. So she's like, Olivia, you should be, like, praying about this, because my mom had it, and it wasn't great, but she's better now, but... you shouldn't. And I was like, oh, like, that shifted. And then when I told my roommates, like, what happened, both of them, like, grabbed out a pen and paper and, like, have it on their desk, like, pray for Miss Bethany. Like, as much as I want to be here with you guys, like, all the time, like, the best thing I can do is just have people that share this with me. But, like, I'm not going through it. I'm not at home, but... understand kind of where I'm coming from. And then it's sweet. Like at church, I'll go up to Mr. Larry Fields. He's like, I just want you to know I love you and I'm praying for this season. So it's like, even though I'm not the one telling them, it's encouraging.
They know what's going on, yeah.
And they actually like remember, sometimes you tell people news and it kind of just goes over their head.
Yeah.
So
I think there's at times like this, what I think gets exposed is the community you actually have around you. If you're willing to share it, right? A lot of folks choose not to share this because they're more private folks and they could never imagine talking about this as a family on a podcast, right? Like that is so bizarre to them, which is fine. Like I'm not saying that what we're doing is the way to do it. However, I do think there's, I do know, because having been a pastor and sat with people that are going through trying times, one of the questions I ask is, who do you have around you? Like, who can support you through this? And, it's a pretty common refrain for people to say, well, I don't want anybody to know. And I understand, I can understand why. It's a vulnerable thing. It's, you don't want to have to explain the choices you're making to people. You don't want to have to, if there's any sort of judgment that may come with it. There can be a wide variety of reasons to justify not wanting folks to know.
Yeah.
So I think the question, I think the kind of the question that folks need to press into is, but what am I doing to build a community around me who can know? Like who are those folks? And, real quick for me, like I'm not going through this. It's never a fear I've ever had of me going through this, right? Because I think there's some percentage of guys that get breast cancer, but it's so low. It's, it's bizarre. But, the irony is, I think we had gotten your diagnosis, and then 4 days later, I got a text message from a friend of mine back in Oregon, and he messaged me. He says, "Hey, Milo, I want to let you know. I know you're people praying. I know you guys love us, but my wife was just diagnosed with breast cancer, and this is what we're facing. And her diagnosis is much more difficult than yours." But what was great was, one, he was somebody reaching out to me, seeking support. And then I could double back and go, hey, we're going through something similar, different treatment and care plan. But how, the question we're asking each other is, how do we husband well through this? Like, what does that look like? How do we be the support? How do we be the husbands we need to be? How do we be the fathers we're supposed to be? Where do we step in? Where do we step back? Where do we provide support and strength, and where do we allow there to be autonomy? Like that path isn't initially clear.
Right. And his wife and I are doing the same thing. We're encouraging each other, sending each other songs and verses, and what are you going in for today, and what was your test today, and trying to end it with, but we know who sees it all, and we know who has this.
And I think asking this question of what are we doing to press into the community that God has for us? And I genuinely believe that no matter what difficulties people are facing, God has a community for them. And it's something for you to discover. It's something for you to receive. Like in our previous podcast, we talk about the difference between receiving and seizing. Like, I don't need to go seize this community. I need to go find those people and who are they and why don't they? I don't need to. This is something I can sit back and let the Lord show me who can step forward. Like, we had dinner with some friends the other night, and they've offered to put together a meal train for us, right, after your surgery, which is a huge blessing.
And then your sister's coming. So.
Yeah, your sister's flying in. So there's all of this blessing that we're starting to see. And what I would encourage folks with is, a lot of this is because of the posture, because we've lived with these convictions when we haven't had as big a difficulties. Like, this has been a posture of our life for a while. And so, we're fortunately benefiting from the work of that. but I don't want people to go like, well, I haven't been doing it, so I don't have it. Or if I haven't been able to find it, is it because I didn't do that? This is not about self-judging and self-critiquing. This is about going, okay, what's the difficulty I'm facing today, and what does the Lord have for me? It's kind of that open posture. All right, Lord, what do I need to learn through all this? Now, having said all of that, for our listeners, like if you want to, we're going to share little updates through our newsletter with a weekly podcast. We send that out weekly. So if you're not signed up for that, you can sign up for that. We'll also put some updates on our Resilient Lineage Facebook page. And you may be thinking, is there a Resilient Lineage Facebook page? Yes, there is. It's a group, actually, Resilient Lineage Facebook group. So if you just type in Resilient Lineage, that'll pop up. There is a question you have to answer. And if you listen to the podcast, you will know the answer to that question. Just because we want to keep this as a closed group of folks that are actually following the podcast and interested in the dialogue that were happening. And if you want to get a hold of Bethany directly, you can email us, hello@thisresilientsoul.com, and we'll pass that word on to her. I know where she lives, so we can get her that information. So we'd love for you to be part of this journey. And obviously, if there's information that you'd like to pass forward, or any words of encouragement, or any or if you have any questions about any of this, we love to dialogue with you about that. So we view you as a listener to this podcast, that we view you as a part of our larger community, hence why we're talking about this on the podcast. Okay, let's talk about the second issue, equip. Yeah. How are we going to personally grow as a family through this? Or how are we going to grow personally and as a family through this?
I think this is something, I think mom's a little less anxious knowing you're home. I feel like if either like PCS was already happening and stuff is being moved out and then she found out, or you were deployed, or you're kind of like half there, half not, half at work, half at home, and like there's no kids, I feel like that would be a whole different story, and a whole mom probably wouldn't be on the podcast right now.
Yeah, it
would be much more difficult. And so I think as you two figure out how it's like being empty nesters, like you get to go to these appointments with mom and you get to actually like know, versus like her be like, this is what my appointment said, and versus like, did you ask these questions? Or so, and like as for your daughter that's not at home, like it's a different seat I feel like I'm in, because it's like usually it's reversed, where I'm in the seat and you guys are pouring into me and praying for me and walking through things with me and supporting me. And like you guys, mom's in the seat now, so it's like, what's my role to like give mom the things she needs and to equip her so that I'm better equipped and I'm better at service for her, kind of thing.
Yeah. So how do we figure that out?
Pray.
Okay.
I think some of it
by our convictions.
Sharing the prayer requests that we have with each other, of like, these are all our obstacles we see in our way.
Yeah.
This is how we think it could happen, but knowing ultimately God sees what needs to happen and trusting him with it. And when we have an answer, we share the answer back with the family. When it's not what I want, I'm not happy necessarily to be joyful that it didn't go the way I wanted it. But at the same time, there are these answers to prayer that are, and they can be follow-up. I heard this old timer say, do you thank God for the answer as much as you asked him for it? If you're asking 100 times for the same for an answer and he gives it to you, do you thank him 100 times? Like, do you come back with a spirit of thankfulness for knowing? And so that's always not been far away from me, of going, Lord, you know, this was heavy on my heart for a long time, and I want to thank you for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so as these answers to prayer come, Andrew's not here with us physically, but it's sending him a text, or it's calling him and going, dude, we got another answer. It's this step closer. Or, I know you were carrying this with me, and I wanted to let you know what happened.
Yeah. And I think, too, there's like in that Acts passage, it says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. And because the apostles were the ones that had spent time with Jesus. And the apostles were the ones that had walked with him and knew what he could do. And I think some of this is stepping back and going, who are the subject matter experts we can lean into? And a few podcasts ago, we were talking about, we had Lori Salerno Modaldo on the podcast. And one of the things she mentioned was being mentored by dead saints, right? Those that have gone before us and captured their hearts and their learnings. And you've been reading some stuff along those lines. And I think there's a lot of value in kind of stepping back and going, probably the first question asked is, I don't know what I don't know, and I need to recognize that. And so there's a humility that is demanded of me to walk through this. And then there's some things like, I know what I don't know. Like, for example, there's some Navy programs and stuff that we could submit for to help get this information in the right places so that a series of future decisions can be made that support the care that you're going to need. And so I had heard of these programs. I didn't know the process. And so, I reached out to my command. My command got me the paperwork. I submitted the paperwork, and next thing you know, everything's fine. Why? So there was very much this posture of like, I don't know, but who could know? Maybe I know who might know. And kind of like leaning into that network of folks, which I think, like you were talking about, sharing with your roommate and her going like, hey, my mom's been through this, or I've had family that's been through this. This is something to pay attention to. Because I think some of this too is like, how serious is it? How big of a deal is it? Like, I don't want to freak out, but I don't want to be dismissive either. And like, where is the appropriate reaction? Where's the appropriate reaction for us? Where's the reaction that is appropriate to the faith that we carry? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's asking all those kind of questions.
Exactly.
And so I think there's and the other piece is this. I think it's us figuring out how to ask one another, what do you need from me right now? In light of this, which...
Not what I need from you, but like, what do you need
Or
from
I'm
me?
not going to assume what you need from me either. Because under normal it's not like you're sick with the flu. We know what to do with that. When Bethany is sick with the flu, she wants to be smothered with love and presence.
From the couch with everyone around me.
Yeah. And she wants to watch one of her movies that she's been...
And she wants everyone in the room to watch it with her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, but I'm the complete opposite. When I'm the flu, it's like...
He hunkers in bed, doesn't want to see anyone for like 12 hours, barely eats or sleeps or talks.
Doesn't want to hear anything.
Is a hermit.
Just leave me alone.
I'm like, come on down to the couch. I'm not taking my germs down there like you do. Yeah.
I'm not you.
So I think there's a healthy reaction to how I would want to go through this might not be how you would want to go through this. And so, which it's like, well, of course, that's obvious. But, I have this working theory that you only know you've made assumptions when you're wrong. Like if you're right, they weren't assumptions. You just knew the information, right? But when you're wrong, it's like, oh, it's because I assumed. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a healthy piece of kind of going, what are some norms we need to establish as we go through this in how we communicate with one another? What assumptions do we not make? When do we, is this something that, yeah. So I think we're just going to kind of put it out there, right? Sometimes these questions lead to other questions. Like, okay, how are we going to do this? I don't know, but we'll keep the question in front of us so that as we are going through it, we will find the answer as we do this. Okay, let's talk about this third one, worship. How are we going to worship God through this, and what could get in the way of that worship? Thoughts?
I'd say 3 years ago, I started a new worship playlist in my phone. It was either new songs our church was singing and we hadn't heard those songs before and started it, or friends would recommend a song, right here a song. And so I have a deep playlist I listen to consistently. But even through this journey, I've had friends sending me songs. Have you heard this one? Have you heard this one? This one helped us when we were dealing with cancer. This one spoke to me today. And then I've been adding those into my playlist to keep it bigger and fresher and listening to the words of them. Because your internal dialogue is always talking. And it depends on what you've been feeding it is what will keep talking back to you. And so if you set your mind on God, you set your mind on things to be true that are outside of you. It is not you focused, it's Him focused. It shifts your perspective. It puts things in perspective. It realizes you are a created being from God who sees you and He knows everything about you and He's got this. I think this last week when I hit a wall on Tuesday. And my thought was, how am I going to let God know about this? I need Him to intervene. And I heard Him say, I heard it all along. You're wanting these humans to fix your timeline for you. But I heard it already. And I'll do what I'm going to do. And I calmed down again. I've been trying to stay in today and not take the cares of tomorrow added into today and face what I have to do before bedtime today. But that day had been a big planning day and we'd been looking at a year. And I came home all spun up of like, okay, I need to figure out my year right now. How am I going to seize it? How am I going to make it happen? And He spoke to me in the laundry room and said, I've heard it all today. So I take a deep breath and I go sit down. And then I go, thank you that you saw it all today. You've got this. I've got to trust you. I trust it with other people. I trust it when it happens to other people. I trust it when it happens to our family members. I've got to trust it for me.
What do you think could get in the way of that?
What I want. Or what I think I need. Like, I think I need a continuity of care. I would love to stay here for a year. God may have another plan and say, you need to be here for half of it, and we will transition you. So it'll remain to be seen.
I think there's one of the things that you and I had talked about is where are we putting our expectations? Because I think if there's anything that sort of gets worship sideways is when we're putting our expectations in the wrong places. Like you said, in some ways hitting that wall on Tuesday was because we received a variety of information that wasn't consistent with where other people had put our expectations. It's not where we had put them. They had put them there. And then they kind of doubled back and were like, well, I didn't really mean that. Like you took that too seriously, or you took me too literally. And it was like when you're trying to settle things and then move forward, and then you find out that the thing you heard that should have been settled isn't settled. It led to you and I having a conversation about expectations. And I think one of the things that worship can be a catalyst for is placing our expectations in God. Like, I'm devoted and I'm going to revere Him above all else, and He holds all my expectations, and because His promises don't fail, and He doesn't back out on His word, and He is not limited in any way. I read the lectionary for my devotions, and recently there's a line that stood out to me, is that God holds our time in His hands. And in a lot of ways, one of the things we're sensitive to as we go through this is time. Like, when are these things going to happen? Because the when shapes so much of the where, and it shapes so much of the who, and it shapes so much of the what, and the Lord kind of going, your time is in my hands. And that's to put my expectation in that place of going, okay, Lord, I'm gonna trust you with that.
If God shuts a door, no man can open it.
Yeah.
If God opens a door,
no
man can shut it. So it's waiting to see
what doors open and what doors close. Yeah. And regardless of what they do, even if it's doors that we didn't see opening or closing, that we will worship Him nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Serve. How can we imagine this being of service to others?
I mean, like, this isn't, we're not doing this probably for fun. Like, this is a very nerve-wracking, emotional, I mean, I don't like sounding emotional in public places, but I do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for those of you who are going through something, I mean, I don't know what every kid's relationship with their parents are, and I don't know what kids that are listening to this, I don't know what your relationship with your parents are, or parents, I don't know what your relationship with your kids are. But my parents have made a series of decisions that now, like, they can tell me these things, and I'm still willing to pray for them and willing to be with them and willing to check up on them. And I know that's not that's not a lot of people's story. It's they have this wall between them and their parents, and there's miscommunication and information not being said. So because of my parents' faithfulness to the Lord and the decisions they've made as a couple, both Andrew and I have the pleasure of, okay, as young adults, how can we not only help them, but help their community as well? And that's still, I mean, we found out this news a month ago, if that. So it's learning to, who do I need to tell? How do I need to act? Do I address it all the time? Do I not? Do we sit down and talk? Like, and like, there are people watching you. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't think about that, but there's a lot of people that you watch. There's a lot of people that are watching you, and how you deal with that, like, they embrace. So, I go to church, and people are like, I'm so glad that you're near them and are willing to be here, because I feel like if they found out this news and it was just them two, it would be a different story. But for them to be with a community they've known for 2.5 years and are willing to be vulnerable with them, and they still serve. See, and like, serving, how can this be a service to others? I feel like, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but when stuff like this happens, people are like, now I can't serve, now I can't be the same person I used to be, so the church doesn't need me, or I don't need to continue doing this. But my parents are like, this is something, but that is not a justification for me to act this way. And that goes back to our main idea, right? Like, it's not living with this. I'm not making decisions based on, like, my mom isn't making decisions based on her cancer. She's making decisions based on the convictions the Lord has placed in her heart. So I think their service to others is also, like, despite me going through this, like, there's still a role I have to play in this community. And it's not a time for me to just take, but it's also an opportunity for me to give back to those and to continue to do it. It's not this, I have this, so it's my turn to be in the seat, keep on giving. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I was just rambling, but.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I feel like women who have faced what I'm facing now, I didn't know them when they were facing it, so I didn't know they had cancer before. And so as they find out I have it, they're giving back to me. They're reminding me of tips and tricks of how to get through recovery. They're sending me songs that help them get through their journey, that their suffering wasn't supposed to be left without them pouring it on either to others, of encouragement, of God's hopefulness through it. So I'm having women pour into me. I had no idea that was part of their story. And I know that's how I'll be, that I'll come alongside women, not to tell them what to do, but to say, just like some of them to me, if you want to hear my side, if you want to hear my journey, I'm happy to share why we did what we did and what it looked like and how to prepare and how to stay faithful with your eyes up and staying hopeful that He loves you despite this.
Yeah, because I think there's we base this serve piece off of the portion where it says they held all things in common. in that Acts passage. And I think what we all hold in common is that we will all go through something difficult.
Yes.
Some folks more difficulties and more frequently than others, but everybody's going to go through something difficult. So how do we hold our difficulties in a common way that, like, there's things that I'm learning through this that aren't just for me, that principally these become pieces of wisdom that I can pass on to someone else. And I think, and in some regards, I think the serve question there's a both and in this, where it's both receiving support from others, because sometimes the best thing I can do to serve someone else is to receive from them.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not about like me getting it's about allowing them to serve. Like, that's an act of service in and of itself. Right. Like, letting them leverage their story, letting them leverage you've had some girlfriends that have gone through this and have all kinds of tips and tricks on what recovery looks like on the other side, and some everything from, what pillows to use and what kind of clothes to wear and all kinds of different things. Like, that's incredibly helpful information that by letting them provide you that information, you are letting them hold that in common for you, right? And then that becomes a resource that I can share with others. It's like what we were talking about in the last podcast, the streams of Negev, right? These waters that there's things that wherever I'm at on that stream, there's lessons I can learn here for the purposes of passing it on to somebody else. Like a stream flows. It's not a pond. It doesn't say the ponds of Negev or the cisterns of Negev or the well of Negev, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the last two episodes because it's a two-parter. But what you'll see is it's this stream. It's flowing from me, and right now I'm benefiting from that service, but this is for a time when I can benefit others for that service. And I think there's even a way for folks that, like, we had the chance to connect with some friends of ours that we haven't talked to in probably 20 years, north of 20 years, and some college friends of ours that she went through, the wife went through something similar. Again, different cases, but a similar care plan. And we reached out to them to just kind of learn from them. And it was a chance for us to be able to reconnect with them and for us to hear from them. And the husband and I have been texting back and forth and things, which has been super cool. And again, it's one of those things of people that we haven't had in our lives for 20 years. And they're good friends. Like, and it's not, there's been nothing wrong. It's just time and separation. They live in another part of the country, and we just haven't had a chance to connect. And so that's just been, it's little things like that we go, okay, how can we take these things and use them for service to the end of the Lord added to their number daily those that were being saved, right? That's the target of all of this. And I might not see anybody come to the Lord today, but a series of culminating interactions, a series of culminating truths, a series of decisions that we're making as a family and not making as a family as we go through this, what we're choosing to do and not to do. Our aim is to see that at minimum, people's walk with the Lord grows, and hopefully that there will be some folks. I've even been thinking about the hospital team. Like, how can we serve that hospital team? How can we be a family that they for whatever reason, and maybe they can't explain it, but they go, there's something different there. And whatever it is, I want it. I want that in my life. And it gives us the opportunity to share the hope of the gospel and the work that Christ can do in their hearts. Okay, any last thoughts? Closing thoughts before we wrap up? I hope this has been helpful to folks. Bethany, thanks for...
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for being on the podcast. How many tissues did we go through? I'm seeing
I have 3. I have 2.
Olivia's and Bethany have a tissue box next to them.
I have another one. I have 4.
4. This is a 6th tissue episode.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. We mentioned the newsletter earlier. We'd love for you to sign up. And obviously, we want to keep you up to date with what's going on here if you want to be updated with our family situation. But more importantly, we'd love for you to just be updated with what's going on with the podcast in general. We are so appreciative of the folks that are signing up for this. We've had more folks signing up every week, and so we want to make sure that you're included in that. If you visit thisresilientsoul.com, you will see the link to sign up for the newsletter, so we encourage you to do that. You can share, follow, rate, review this podcast, particularly if you know somebody that's going through something difficult. Maybe this would be something that could help them, or at minimum, help you initiate a conversation about how do we talk about those things. And again, you may go like, these aren't my convictions. We have a different set of convictions. Fantastic. Whatever those convictions are, don't let the difficulties shape your life choices. Let those convictions shape your life choices. And so if this podcast has helped kind of illuminate that truth, we'd love for you to share this with others. You can follow me on Instagram, X, Facebook. Just look up Milo Curtis and you will find my lovely face. And then you can follow me there.
You can follow me at olivia.grace_28 on Instagram or Olivia Curtis on Facebook.
And like we said, we have a Facebook group, and we would love for you to join that group as well. This is new, and so dive into that. If you want to email us, hello@thisresilientsoul.com. We're always looking for ways to deepen the quality and expand the impact of the podcast. So if you have some ideas on how we do that, we welcome your input. Thank you all for listening. Go with God and be at peace.